Good morning. Today's Shir, Wednesday, Chav Gimel year, will be on Rambam Hilchos Malveh Vloveh page Kutches Halach Aleph. But before we get to that, we're going to discuss a three-way machlekes rishonim in the sugya. The purpose of today's Shir, or the nekuda of today's Shir, will just to explain Shittas Rambam. Some other Rishonim, Rashba, and even possibly a variation of Rashi. So the Gemara in Ksubis Peidal Amid Aleph has a Mishnah. The Mishnah talks about metaltal and movable objects or kesef, money, whether it's a Malveh, loan, or pikadon, or deposit that a father left over and he died. And the objects, the metaltalin or the money, have not reached yet the domain of the Yarshim of the estate. And he has chayvis. The father had debts, and he also had an almana, a widow to whom he owes the ksuba. Now, the balchayv and the almana, the balchayv and the widow are demanding from the Yarshim, from the children, from the inheritors, that they pay off the chayv of their father. Of course, they claim, which is a topic not for discussion now, that the father didn't pay the debts. How we verify that is not the discussion today. So there's a machlekes tanoim in the Mishnah. The Tarfin says, "Yinasnu lekoisho shebahem." You give it to the least, and the Gemara talks about what that means. We're not going to discuss it now. Rabbi Akiva answers him, "No, ein merachmin b'din. We have no rachmanis when it comes to din. We have no rachmanis." Just agav, I just want to say that Rabbi Akiva was the one who said, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha." Rabbi Akiva was the Gabi Tzedakah. Nevertheless, when it came to din, it was a real dayan. Ein merachmin b'din. You have to do the right thing, whether it hurts or not. So therefore, what do? You give, says Rabbi Akiva, you give everything to the Yarshim, and that they're holding the karka, and they don't even need a shvua. The Yarshim don't even need to swear. On the other hand, a isha and a balchayv, they would need to swear to collect their chayv. So therefore, that's why Rabbi Akiva holds that you give it to the Yarshim because they come first. The Mishnah adds another case. What happens if there are in this karka? There is the metaltalin, peperis. There is fruit that fell off from the tree. It fell onto the thing again. And also the machlekes between Rav Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva, whether the women or the balchayv can be typhus, can take the peperis and use it towards their loan, towards the loan obligation of the father. However, if there was if there was more than the loan, the fruits, the produce turned out to be more than it was owed, you take it away from them and you give it to the koishel shabam, according to Rabbi Akiva, and again to Rabbi Tarfon according to Rabbi Akiva in merachim b'din, and everything you give to the Yisayimim because they don't need a shur. Okay, so Rashi explains what is the what is the root machlekes between Reb Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva over here. So Rashi explains that everybody agrees that metaltalin that are already in the reshus of the assignment, that are already found in the estates of the orphans, they don't become meshubed. They aren't hypothecated to the balchayv. They don't belong to the balchayv. The problem is, or the machlekes, says Rashi in the Mishnah, is what's the situation if the metaltalin, these fruits, these movable objects, have not yet reached the estate of the Yarshim, and where is it? It's in another place. It's in a place where a person who borrowed from the father or somebody is watching it. In other words, it's not in the location under the domain, so to speak, of the assignment of the orphans. It's somewhere else, either by somebody who borrowed it or by somebody who's watching it. According to the Tarfon, so according to this is how Rashi explains. The metaltalin, these movable objects, are meshubit, are hypothecated they're within the gather of shibud, and therefore the balchayv, the person who was owed money, or the widow who was owed her ksuba, has an ability to take these movable objects since it's not yet in the rishus of the Yisayimim. Rabbi Akiva says, no, these items are not yet meshubid. These items are not yet they're not owned by anybody, by the balchayv. So I'm sorry, they're not obligated to the lender or to the woman. Therefore, it goes straight to the assignment. So the question here becomes the real question is going to be, at what stage is there or isn't there shibud? Whether the stage is even when the father was alive, there wasn't shibud, or only after he died. So Rashi learns that we can bring a proof from a Gemara in Bava Metzia, a person who had a field, and he held the field and he was benefiting from the fruits of the field, but the field itself didn't belong to him. Let's say he leased it or he rented it, etc. He leased it or he rented it, and after, so the question is, what happens after he dies? Well, and the balchayv, he owes money. The person owes money to the person that's renting the field owes money to somebody else. Whether he has a shibud, whether he has an ownership in those fruits. It's a similar case to what we were just talking about, but here it's more clear, talking about after he dies. In other words, during the time he was alive, yeah, he leased the field, he was eating fruit, and he died. The question is, what happens to the fruit? So Rashi says that since from we can take from the actual Leveh himself, since from the Leveh himself, from the borrower himself, we can take these movable objects. Because why, says Rashi? Because since the guf haleva, the leva himself, not just his possessions, he himself is meshubed to the Malveh. He owes the Malveh. In other words, everything that he has, everything that he is meshubed to the Malveh. So therefore, says Rashi, we could take everything that is shaykh to him, everything that is owned by him. And he brings a proof, a shliach bezdin can take a mashkin from the leva bakar. So Rashi says this is only talking about when the balchayv comes to the leva. So the balchayv, the person who he owes money to, he has, since the leva himself is meshubed, the guf haleva is meshubed to the Malveh. So therefore, even his metaltalin is also meshubed to the Malveh. This is an important point. Even since the guf haleva is meshubed to the Malveh, so therefore, even his peiros, his metaltalin is also meshubed to the Malveh. Rashi says that when it comes to Yarshim, this doesn't apply. When in this same case, the person dies, and now the metaltalin, so to speak, is going to go to the domain of the estate. So since it's metaltalin are not meshuvah to the Malveh, so he can only take from karka. Why? So Rashi says because the reason is because when a person lends money to another person, when the lender lends money to a borrower, he relies on the fact that the borrower will pay him back, and if he can't pay him back, he'll take everything that he has. But he doesn't. That only applies to things that he could see, but not metaltalin. Metaltalin is something that he hides. He doesn't rely on the metaltalin. He could take the metaltalin, doesn't rely on the metaltalin. Okay. We're not going to get, there's a question of what's called apriteki, which is where a person designates certain metaltalin. We're not going to get into that. It's another discussion for now. So according to Rashi says that the only time that it's clear that the metaltalin go to the Malveh is when he's alive. After he dies, there's no shibud nechasim of the metaltalin, of the movable objects to the balchayv, because that's not something that the lender was relying on, because he could take it and hide it somewhere he wasn't relying on. Okay, the Rashba has a different shita. Rashba has a completely different shita. The Rashba learns that the metaltalin of the leva, the movable objects of the borrower, are designated, are meshubed, are owned, are hypothecated for the loan. He's very clear on that, and therefore while he's alive, he's meshubed, and therefore, and there's two reasons why why the borrower relies on the metaltalin for two reasons. Number one, the goodness of his heart. The borrower received a benefit from him, and therefore he doesn't want to be a kafi taiva. So what do you mean? I'm not going to give you my metaltalin. I borrowed from you $10,000. I owe it to you. I surely will give you back whatever I have. So therefore, even metaltalin. Another thing is the Leveh, says the Rashba, will surely not want to be called the Leveh Rasha v'lo Yishalim, and there as somebody which will also ruin his reputation, and therefore he's mishabed everything else. So when the Gemara says, so says the Rashba, how does this jive with the Gemara? What the Gemara says, metaltalin lo mishtabdi. We're clear that everything is mishubed. So it says the Rashba designates that that's only a difference between after the Leveh dies, after the borrower dies. So then the metaltalin are not mishtabed because the Malveh is not seimach on this whole issue after the death. He's only seimach on the metaltalin while he's still alive. So Rabbi Akiva will say that even if the metaltalin, even if the movable object were somewhere else, and that the Yisraelim can't hide them, etc., and even if they were at a pikadon, the Malveh can't take them because he was not mishubit, because he didn't rely on them lechatchila. So therefore, there's no shibud after the father dies. Okay. Now let's get to the Rambam. In the Rambam, there's a stira. Rambam has a stira. The Mefarshim talked about a seemingly open stira between two Rambams. The Rambam in Perek Yud Aleph Halacha Zayin of Hilchos Malveh Vloveh writes as follows: Aval haboli para min hayeresh. Somebody comes to take his funds, his debt, bein katan, bein gadol, whether it's a minor, whether it's an adult, lo yifra min metaltalin, he cannot take anything from metaltalin. Afilu heim hayu mufkadim malveh tzlachedim, even they're somewhere else. It says the Rambam sham metaltalin einay tachas shibud balchay v'natei, that the movable objects are not meshubed, are not hypothecated to the malveh v'natei. On the other hand, in our Rambam today, Perek Yud Ches Halacha Aleph, the Rambam says, Hamal Perek Yud Ches Halacha Aleph, Malveh Chavei Stam, Harikol Nechasov Achrayim V'Arvayim L'Chayv Zeh. All of his estate, all of his possessions are Achrayim V'Arvayim, are responsible and designated for this chayv. When a person comes to demand the chayv, as bal chayv etchila, imatz imin nechasim ben metaltalin ben kakaris geiva mehem b'rasan alevi. So we see from here that there is a shibud. So l'chayda there's a stira. Metaltalin meshubah to the Malveh midiraisa. How come it is? How come he's able to be geiva from metaltalin? So we must say there's a difference between the actual shibud and actually the collection. In other words, when the Rambam talks about in Halacha Yud Ches that he can take metaltalin, it's not because of shibud. We'll try to explain this maybe in a contemporary way. That the concept is there's a chazaka kol ma shetachas adam yad adam shaloyu. This is a very strong chazaka. Why? Because in the earlier days, real estate wasn't considered something that was always for sure to one person. You had to prove that you owned the real estate. You had to prove, because we knew that there was difference in ownership of real estate, etc., etc. However, when it came to metaltalin, when it came to movable objects, in most cases, say the Mefarshim, since the person created the chair, he created the shovel, he created the table. So this is something that we say that if he's holding it, it must be his. So therefore we say the chazaka is inherently saying that it's that metaltalin, something that is a movable object, is not meshubit to somebody else, because of the chazaka shekol ma shetachas yad adam shaloyu. But there are certain cases that we could take it away. For example, that we know if he was meshubah to the Malveh, if something that he hypothecated to the Malveh. The question becomes, what happens with Yarshim? So to say that so on the one hand, what the bottom line, what the Mefarshim want to say is that on the one hand, we say that that metalton aren't meshubim. But on the other hand, what we want to say is that you could collect from them. Because if it's his, you could collect from it. So there's a difference between shibud metaltalin and gvias metaltalin. That's the bottom line, how the Mefarshim explain the stira in the Rambam. I'm making it short because we're running late, so just making to make a sequel. According to Rashi in the Rambam, metaltalin taka doesn't have a shibud by as long as the leiva, as long as the even while the borrower is alive, because the Rashi adds that since the leiva has a shibud aguf, has everything, he has a shibud aguf, so therefore everything that is under him, so to speak, is meshubit to the Malveh, but not per se that there's a shibud of metaltalin. There's no gather of shibud of metaltalin, and therefore after the borrower dies, the leiva dies, so therefore you can't collect the metaltalin because there's no more shibud aguf. The difference between, and we could say that the same thing with Rashi, with the Rambam. The difference between Rashi and the Rambam is Rashi is not the Rashi doesn't say clearly this gather, like the Rambam says it clearly, that metalton are not meshubid minatayim. According to the Rashi, there's no arvus in metalton, but it's not shibud. So according to the Rashba, he argues completely. The Rashba says that there is shibud metalton, and therefore, and the leiva is relying on it. And but sometimes, why after Misa, why after death, is there no shibud? Because he doesn't rely on the metalton, because could be hidden, could be taken somewhere else. Just try to explain the different shittas in the Rishonim on this halach.